Hi, welcome to Resist with Joy podcast, where we amplify the voices of everyday people and empower our listeners to engage, show up, and become policy shapers of tomorrow. I'm Tina Marie.
My name is Martina, and we want to talk about the top of our mind news of the last week. So I think we should just dive right into it. All right. So what's on your mind?
What is on my mind? Lots of things. First off, CNN uncovered essentially a rape academy that is happening online, where a website is filled with a bunch of men worldwide that goes to this website, and what they're depicting on there is absolutely atrocious. They are men with significant others. So these are not just lonely men. These are men that are married, have long-term relationships, and they talk about how they've been drugging their wives, their significant others. And while they're drugged and asleep, they go on to sexually assault them. Other men are watching this and paying to watch this. And other men are in the comments there saying, how much of a dose should I give my woman? Because I don't want to kill her. I just find this absolutely shocking, because now it's like, can we even trust our husbands? Can we even trust our significant others to keep us safe in our own home? I know I can trust my husband. I know that. He doesn't go to those things. But it's just crazy that a lot of women out there are now having to second guess their spouses and their significant others. It's just another attack on women. What do you think?
That's the word that comes up. I heard about it. I think it started to come out on Tuesday. I don't know when it was published, Tuesday or Wednesday. And so I hear that headline and I'm like, what? But then more and more folks started to talk about it, So, and we will put in the show notes the original CNN coverage on that, so you get back to the source. It just reminded me of a case from France where a woman in her 70s had to endure the same thing, and she was raped, I believe, by 200 men, and 50 of them were arrested, indicted, and also convicted. And she wrote a book about it, and I actually bought it just a few weeks ago. Her name is Gisèle Pélicot, and when I heard that story, for me, it was just like steroids of this story, right? Just so amplified and so depraved. And it's really this question, can we feel safe as a woman in our environments? Can we still do it? And I wish that for everybody. I feel safe too. But still, that question mark is now really, because I don't know if you mentioned it already, but the number from CNN reported is 62 million hits on this website in 1 month. So just put that in perspective, yeah? So
and I think it jumped to 84 million. I think it jumped to 84 million last month, because the 62 million was from February. So I think it jumped up to 84 million last month, which is
right.
What is going on?
I saw a comparison, just for example, I think it was Disney or other really well-visited websites. They're at 20 million or maybe at 10 million or 5 million. So nothing, whatever number you take, 62 or 84, is just, yeah, it's hard to emotionally to actually stand with that and trying to process this. And what I do is I kind of block it. I'm like, I don't even let that in, but I need to deal with it somehow. It's just another nail that is being hammered into us, that's of feeling inferior. That's what we're supposed to feel, right? And I sit with this for a while, and I'm like, you bet I'm not inferior. We want equality, but I think actually we should change the world to a place where women are in charge for the next 2,000 years, just to create a world that is just not so depraved and so violent. And yeah, so these are my thoughts on that.
And I think it's crazy, because these men, they have to think about the consequences of what's going to come of this. If your women do not trust you, what do you think they're going to do to your food? I mean, back in the olden days, women had ways of dealing with these things. Do they not think that something like that is going to start happening again? I would be very afraid if I were them. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I saw a reporting too that women are coming out now in the comment section of whoever is posting about it. There's a lot of posting about it and commentary. But then you look at the actual what people post and comment, and they're naming people. So the question is, do we want to live in a society that has consequences, right? Where you can live, where you know there will be consequences to your action. The problem that we live with is that for 15 years, or 11 years when he came down the escalator, the current president, he behaved always like nobody's going to help me accountable. And that has so reflected to society. And then all the podcasts that are made for the right wing and for men in that space to believe in certain things, Yeah, it's really hard to think about it and actually talk about it and post that as well. But I think that's the conversations we need to have.
Absolutely.
It's really important.
Anywho, what else is on your mind?
I wanted to talk something we covered last week briefly, because it was just being news coming out of Hungary. And yes, I'm talking about a small European country again. Well, my connection to Europe is just deep, 30 years Germany, and now I'm trying to do 30 years Hawaii.
Europe, essentially, so it's part of you.
Yeah, it's my heritage, European. And for me, it was normal to drive 2 hours. I was in Holland, I drive several more hours and I'm in a different country. So comparing to America, it's a great place to live. But I also think here is a great place to live. I'm just very fortunate to live in the Western world all my life and have all this opportunity to create a life I like to live. So why do I get back to Hungary? Because more information has come out over the week. And I'm really more encouraged to learn how this new prime minister, who is replacing Viktor Orban, who had created a liberal democracy, I repeat, a liberal democracy in Hungary over 16 years by changing the constitution, changing the media. That was 80% was state propaganda media. The judiciary was changed. The bureaucracy was changed. And Peter Magyar
Little by little, they slowly eroded their democracy.
Yeah, 16 years is a long time. So Orban came into office in 2010 and is voted out now in 2026. But what I learned this week, Peter Magyar was actually in an interview on state TV, and he was just really pushing back and creating the future for Hungary, what he envisions. And one of the things he said, this state TV, you never invited me during my campaigning. I mean, think of it. Think of in the United States, someone could not in their campaign make their voice heard. Think of it. So everything Peter Magyar did was grassroots to the country. Neighbors talking to the neighbors and just learning about how they can turn this around. And one of the things Peter Magyar said is like, hey, we're going to shut down this state propaganda media environment and we're going to rebuild it. Think of it, what we can do in America. Right? I think it's so inspiring to me to just have the finger on the pulse.
They gave us a blueprint of how we can change what's going on with us.
That's right.
And we need to be smart enough to come together and build a beautiful flower.
That's right. Yes. And all your listeners, you're part of it. You're listening to our voices and how we decided we want to create this podcast and have something out there to talk about things that affect us. What I learned this morning, I always video conference with my family in the morning. They're still in Germany. Someone is in Canada. So it's always this triangle of 3 different places. I was talking about illiberal democracy. So for the listeners, I want to live in a liberal democracy. Tina Marie wants to live in a liberal democracy, because in a democracy of that form of government, the individual and their rights are the forefront. That's what drives everything. Now, if you have an illiberal democracy, it has the shine of democracy. There's still elections, but everything else is controlled by the state. And that's what Orban did to Hungary. But what I learned this morning is Hitler did the same thing. Where I come from Germany, everybody knows that connection, that Hitler was, whatever story there is, the horrors of that. But he was democratically elected, and then he turned this all around, and he also called it illiberal democracy. So it's all repeating itself. And this is the time to put an end to this. This cannot happen again. And so that's the work we have to do.
Every single day we have to do something to either stay aware or at least bear witness to history, if nothing else, just so we are not erased. What's going on right now doesn't get erased.
Yeah, I wanted to just reiterate that from last week. And I think you have something too you wanted to bring up again that we talked about last week. And that has to do with Citizen United.
Yes.
So take it away.
Yes. So in Hawaii, we have a bill number 2471. It passed the House. So now it has to go cross over into the committees and go to Senate for a vote before it gets signed into law. But essentially, it is our version to combat Citizens United.
Citizen United was that turning point in 2010 where the Supreme Court decided that corporations can pour money into politics, into body of politics. And since then, for 16 years, there's a lot of efforts to get the dark money out of this. So,
yes. So here's the summary of the bill. This bill basically says that corporations and LLCs don't have natural rights like people. They only have powers given to them by the state. It resets those powers so they can only do what's needed to run a business, and it would stop them from spending money to influence elections or ballot measures, which is huge because we are the first state that I know of that is implementing or trying to implement something like this into our state law to prevent corporations from infiltrating our elections. And if it passes the state Senate and gets signed by our governor, then we are going to be setting the record. And we're pioneering this essentially for the rest of the United States to do so in their states. And I think that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's a brilliant move. I do know that about 30 states are already trying it, but because every legislator in all the states are different and have different powers and more Republican, more Democratic, it's called the Montana Plan. Montana has done that too, but they don't go through the legislator. They put it on a ballot. They want to put it on the ballot so the citizens can vote on it on the ballot. So it's a lot of movement going on, but if Hawaii can push this through and the governor signs it, it's a huge deal because it is the way to get the money out of politics. And I'm all for it. And so let's cross our fingers and that this is going to happen.
Can you cross both fingers though, and then cross your thumbs?
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you reiterated that as well, because it's still lingering. Right now, the legislator is in the conference phase where I believe it's like for 10 days, the House and the Senate sends people to the conference and they talk about certain bills, and bills can die there in conference because if they cannot agree on something. But if Bill 2471 makes it through the conference and they agreed on how to write that final bill, because they both have some different versions, I think, created. And then it goes to the governor, and then the governor has to sign it. So we have to keep pushing forward and put pressure on all these lawmakers and the politicians to bring that to fruition. It's an exciting thing. It's our motto, right? We're showing up and we want to shape policy. And that would be a huge shift for policy for money in politics.
Yes.
Yeah, it's exciting.
We got... situation is evolving in Cuba right now, and our lovely, amazing, and smart and brilliant leader of our nation has put a embargo on Cuba, so they're not able to receive any oil. Basically, put a blockade on oil for them, and it's creating a huge economic crisis in Cuba right now. Our dictator-in-chief is trying to do yet another regime change in another country.
Yeah.
Which baffles me because he doesn't realize that his actions are very ironic, because anything that he accuses another nation of doing that's bad, he's doing it himself. And the fact that he wants to invade Cuba after he's done this with Venezuela, after he's done it with Iran, he's threatened, Canada and Greenland and Mexico and the Panama Canal. Now he's got his sights on Cuba. And for someone who has been advocating for peace and makes a whole board of peace, he sure loves to go to war.
Well, what he's the master is, he's a master in gaslighting people.
Yes.
You say something and then you do the opposite. But if I may just tell a little bit of a story about gaslighting, because it's connect back to my mom, who was born in 1936. The word gaslighting came up a few years ago, and everybody was using it, and I'm like, what's that mean, right? So I looked up the meaning. It's based on a movie out of the 1940s, out of the United States, and it's called Gaslight. And that movie is about a woman, a wealthy woman, and a husband, and the husband wanted her money. And to get that money, he was trying to drive her crazy, like literally driving her crazy. And back in the day, in the 1940s, there was a lot of there was gaslights, not electric light, but gaslight. So what the husband did, he just put the light always on half, but told the wife, this is a full powered light. So he was always trying to distort reality for her. And so it is something that was a film in the 1940s. And I'm like, oh, now I know how gaslighting, what that means, right? And so I talked to my family on the weekend, and my mom says to me, again, she's turning 90 this year, and she's like, I've seen the movie. I'm like, what do you mean you saw the movie? It's a 1940s United States made movie. She's like, yeah, we watched it in Germany in the 1950s. Think of that, because they were recovering in Germany from the years of Hitler and the Nazis. And
That's incredible that translated that well,
Yeah. But it also means, for me, I just look at this too. I'm like, I grew up with parents that understood from the start, or in their young years, the manipulation of the brain, propaganda, and what it does to a whole nation and literally the world. And so when I think of Trump, he is the master in manipulation, and his best buddy is Putin. It's like they all have that, and they know how to do it, and they do it well. Social media doesn't help us. In this case, they just manipulate so many people through the algorithms. And so, the word gaslighting has a real deep meaning in my case, because it goes back to my family. Mm-hmm.
And that brings up a memory for me from 2016, because I remember learning about the KGB and how well infiltrated they get when they're trying to form relationships and change people's minds. They even created a group, and Samantha B at the time did a segment on this where she interviewed 2 hackers from Russia who admitted to going online to rage bait people into having conversations that would be pro-Trump. And when Samantha B asked them straight up, don't you think that this is unethical? Their response was essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, it's not our fault that people are too dumb to recognize what we're doing, or something like that. Yeah. And that's when I realized that there's a lot of bots out there, or just people that just purposely infiltrate the online space and purposely rage bait you to get attention and to get clicks. And then all of that conversation that you're having is probably with somebody that is just getting paid to do that. Or nowadays you're arguing with a bot online. But Russia is a master at that, at gaslighting, because they created an entire organization around doing just that. And it's just, and somehow, when people like Trump end up using it, they end up gaining power, and people that follow them and like them because of it are none the wiser until you actually come into yourself and realize, maybe I'm being told lies. Maybe I need to step back from this and figure out what is truth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's called undue influence. Just you're under the influence of a cult leader, and he just indoctrinates you. I just want to repeat the name of those folks that were interviewed doing the pre-work of the bots, I guess. It's called KGB, and it's the CIA of Russia. Actually, it was of the Soviet Union. And I'm not sure if people make that connection, but Putin was a spy with the KGB in East Germany. This dude knows how to do it. When he was a young man, he was a spy in East Germany when it was still a separated country. It was still East and West Germany before 1989. And he knows how to manipulate the brain and psychological warfare. And I mean, he must have a blast, because when social media came up and they did the test case, how to influence Europe, that's when they got Brexit going. They were just trying to get the United Kingdom out of the European Union. And then they used Hungary as a vassal state to influence the European Union through Viktor Orban. It's all connected. It's mind-blowing if we just go rational and look at all the facts. it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And to tie this back to Cuba, he's doing the same thing with trying to put military forces in Cuba. He's gaslighting us, trying to say, oh, he's going there for a regime change. Look at how awesome I am. But in reality, he just wants to take over another country. So don't let Trump gaslight you into being pro-invade Cuba.
The might is right. I think that's his motto, right? No, the might is right. What do you call it? No.
Might makes right. You are correct. Is an aphorism asserting that those with superior strength or power dictate moral standards, justice, and societal rule. It suggests that the powerful can enforce their agenda while the weak must submit. And you know what I say to that? I got 2 fingers on each hand. Read between the lines of what I want to say to that.
Yeah, me too. I just keep my hands low, below the camera. Yeah. But we hope that through these conversations that there's a little bit more information coming your way for making the connections between all the powers of this world.
Yes. So a little bit of good news, I guess. We're going to end on some good news. The Hawaii County for our island, so our entire island, the big island, is called Hawaii County. And we had our Hawaii County Convention for the Democratic Party yesterday. I am the assistant secretary, and I managed the Zoom room and attendance and whatnot, and questions, and spotlighted people that were talking. So we passed all of our platform additions that we added, and all but one resolution got passed. The only resolution that failed was the one to hold Democrats accountable when they are representing a district, that they be in their district. What happens right now is a lot of our Democratic lawmakers have to fly to Oahu when they're in session. So a lot of them end up staying there because it just ends up being more convenient. And when they end up staying in Oahu, they get more Oahu minded. And the less they're spending in their communities, the less in touch with their communities that they end up being. So that resolution was trying to address that. There were some concerns that, politicians need to keep their private addresses safe and whatnot, which the bill was not really addressing that per se. But I think that's how it got misinterpreted. So it failed, but we at least made an effort to try to put that through. But that's the only bill that failed, or the only resolution, I should say, not a bill, it's a resolution that failed. And we passed everything else. So all of those are going to move on to the state party, and hopefully the state party at the state convention can adopt some of those resolutions. And another cool piece that we did yesterday is I got to conduct a mock election. We had 2 different voting methods going on. I found a program that allowed us to do ranked choice voting, so we were able to implement that. And we also did regular plurality voting, which is, the person with the most votes wins. So I had the group come up one at a time and suggest names to introduce into the ballot. And some people put in their dogs, and some people put themselves, which I thought was funny. And other people put like actual names like Zohran Mamdani, Jon Stewart, AOC, things like that. And with our plurality, the one that got the most votes, Pete Buttigieg actually won that one with 23% of the vote. Now, mind you, we had about 50 people voting on this. However, when we did the ranked choice voting, AOC initially came ahead, but when I refreshed my screen, Zohran Mamdani actually won that one, which was pretty awesome. So we can confidently say that Hawaii County will elect Zohran Mamdani as our next president.
Well, it was a mock-up. It
was a mock election. So obviously nothing comes of it, but it was fun and everybody enjoyed themselves. When I took a poll at the convention yesterday, asking people who liked the first version versus ranked choice voting, I think like 2 or 3 people raised their hands for the regular way voting, but everyone else raised their hand for ranked choice voting. So I think ranked choice voting is going to be talked about more and pushed more at the legislation level, hopefully. And the more momentum we get on that, the better our elections are going to be.
Yeah. You're starting to rattle the cage just to get away from the entrenched system. The entrenched system is like who has the most votes wins, right? But ranked choice voting, it's a different system. And someone like Zoran Mandami, as the mayor of New York, was able to go through that system in the Democratic Party in New York, and today is the mayor. And what a joy that is. I'm not sure if everybody saw it, but former President Obama and Mayor Mandani, they went to
so
children's child care, and they were singing along. Hilarious. I mean, these are the leaders we're looking for. Yeah. For me, it was the first time to be, I signed up for the Democratic Party. I was always not affiliated with anybody, but you convinced me, the way you handled trying to make difference and change within a party. I signed up too, and I turned into I'm now a delegate at large. We'll see what that all means, but it meant I was actually on Zoom yesterday. It was really well organized, just to have my voice heard or have my vote counted. It was interesting to see the process and how it all went. It took 6 hours with a little break in between. Everybody's voices out there, and people could say the rules. It was interesting how you voted on the rules and changing the platform. I really enjoyed. It was long, but I mean, it was fine.
And just to give everybody a little bit of history about that, see, each district comes together and elects delegates, which is what Martina is, which is what I am. And the delegates get to go to pre-convention and our county convention to vote on platform and resolutions, which is basically the grassroots level of forming what we want our Democratic Party to be for our county. Now, these don't get enacted in law. It doesn't mean that it's going to be the rule of the law of the Democratic Party. However, what it does do is it gives us a basis. It gives us a blueprint for our legislators to look at and adopt when they vote on things in legislation. So basically, this is us telling them, hey, this is what we want our party to be. This is what we want our policies to be. When you're elected, this is what we want you to follow. So it's essentially a blueprint for them to follow. And that allows us to tell our legislators as a body to enact those things in legislation. And it really helps because I think from hearing from other members who have gone to county conventions in the past, yesterday had the most progressives show up than any other county convention before that. So having people like you, having people like me, and having other like-minded individuals who have the sense of urgency to get stuff done, showing up helps push the party and make it better. And yesterday was a perfect example of that. And what a better way to have a group of people test out ranked choice voting than at places like that. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was big congratulations of the organization and doing it and seeing, we can make a difference. That's all I'm trying to do. I have a voice. I want to make a difference. I want to create a better world. And that's one vehicle to do it. And in a political system, it is a party that is the vehicle. And the Republican Party is non-existent. It exists in Hawaii. I'm not too sure if in the county of Hawaii.
It does.
It does?
Yeah, they have their own county conventions too. But because Hawaii is more Democratic based, there's less people that go to it. But yes, they have their own county conventions. They have their own platforms that they push. And I think there's only 10 legislators that are Republican, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Don't quote me, but yes.
Yeah. I just have a real problem to talk to anybody who really has an R at this point, because it's like, what does it say about you? What is your moral compass to continue to have that R behind your name? It's difficult. So I just chose to make the difference. Be now a member of the Democratic Party. And we'll see how long that lasts. But we have a two-party system. We have to make sure the one party that is ruling the grassroots is watching them and makes the right decision and push it into the vehicle into the right direction. So we'll report back.
I also think for everybody that doesn't like the two-party system like I do, go create your own party, please. Because what you're going to need is you're going to need people in every district. You're going to need people in every county. You're going to need people in every state to form a party. And then you have to pay a lot of money to get on ballots, to get signatures, and to just form an entity at the national level. But if you start forming that party right now, then you can have a third party or what have you 10, 20 years from now. But it is going to take a lot of work to do that. In the meantime, I think it's strategic to work within the Democratic Party, because I think once we eliminate electoral college and we implement ranked choice voting, we can actually dismantle the two-party system's hold, and that will allow more parties to actually be elected into higher office. But at the very grassroots level, at your city council, your school boards, your election commissions, your transportation commissions, your state legislators, those are the best places to get your independence in there, starting right now.
And I believe it's happening. Look at me. I'm in that now too. And I didn't think that 3 months ago. All right. I think that was a good wrap up to end our top of the mind news for this week. So thank you so much for listening. If you are subscribing, just
hit all the buttons. Here.
Push all buttons. We're on Substack, on YouTube. We will get our little social media machine going too, so we can push out more clips. We would love for you guys to share those clips. We're just getting started, and we want to be resisting with joy. And I hope you come on this journey.
Aloha.
Aloha.